Hello. So good afternoon. Um, it's 2:35, so let's start. But first of all, I'm sorry about last Monday. So we had problems with our internet connection with PLDT. But everything's back to normal. So we'll start the class. I'll just share my screen. So today we're going to talk about living and dining spaces. But before that, I'd like to make an evaluation of your exercise number 3, which is about the kitchen. Um, so generally, nearly all of you have problems making a concept. Um, so I think we will try this for this format for your next exercise, which is about the dining room and living room and dining room. So in when you write a concept, I've been saying that you have to first say what you want to use as a style or a theme, and then you will then say how you want to interpret it. So in this case, I will give you this outline. After saying what style or theme, you will say how you interpret it in terms of architectural elements, like for example, the doors and the windows. For example, windows, you plan to use a jalousie, casement type window, French window, depending on the theme. Or the door, you want a panel door or heavy solid door or whatever. Then how do you interpret in terms of materials? A lot of you mention materials also, like you would like it to be more wood or a combination of steel and glass or with metal. And then what colors are you going to use? Okay. Now, something that I noticed is that you always want you always mention the function only in the concept. In fact, there are some who says that okay, the kitchen is supposed to do what it's supposed to do, something like that. So uh, the kitchen is designed to function as such, or the kitchen is designed to make everyone relaxed. So that is not designed. Okay. Um, in your history one, you encountered the um, three aspects of architecture by Vitruvius, no? Venustas, Utilitas, Firmitas. And that's like beauty, function, and technique. And function is different. So that's another area. And we're actually looking, so I'm going to judge you according to how efficient your layout is, etc. But then uh, I also need to judge you according to how you use beauty or aesthetics. Okay, and that's where your concept is supposed to come in. Okay, because I'll have to judge you whether your idea is okay and then whether you interpret that idea. So you do not write the function in the concept because in the first place it's already there. I can see it. You don't even need to explain it. No? But you do need to explain, for example, if you're using any material, because sometimes in your drawing, you don't actually put down the material and you don't even label them. And then most of your designs, nearly everyone has a modern design, and of course, limited to what your SketchUp can do. Your 3D warehouse in SketchUp, whatever is there, so you just put it in and everything is uh, like a canned design, no? That's why some perspectives really look very good, because I think it's generated from SketchUp, either traced or uh, some other way, no? Okay, so in your next exercise, you're going to submit another sheet where you can type in word this table. Okay, and then you're just going to fill out this table here. Okay, I'm going to share this also in Canvas, and so this is different from the drawing. In terms of function, these are the things I have to say. No? First, the dining area is not part of the design problem. Okay, we have a formal and informal kitchen. At most, you can put a breakfast nook, but the breakfast nook should be located in the formal kitchen. Okay, there's some of you who place it in the informal kitchen. And then the breakfast nook is actually really small, just a table for four since there are only four in the family, or a counter for four. Okay, so I don't understand, for example, if you make a counter with only three stools, so who does not get to eat? Um, and then the breakfast table, the breakfast nook is somewhere where the family take very fast meal, breakfast simply. So normally there's no formalities involved. They just come in, they just drink something. So it's very near the kitchen because after doing that, you immediately remove everything, clean up, and then go. For the formal kitchen, an L shape with an island is the best, or you can have a U shape. I think I'll show you another design which made use of the U. But the idea is on that side where there's a door leading to the informal kitchen, that should be unobstructed, okay, because the traffic is heavy. Okay, so you cannot put so many furniture there or cabinets. In the informal kitchen, the L shape is also the best, so that the rest of the space is used for circulation. Okay. Now, circulation is very important in kitchen, not only for people to pass through, but for people with many things um, on their hands. No, so you can imagine, for example, your cook or maybe your mother baking, and then with a big pot on her hands. So these are the type of people who are actually there working, especially if there's a someone assisting. Okay, there might be also a big tray or something, a lot of things in their hands. Um, so it's not just people walking. So these are people working with carrying something bulky. So that's why I noticed that there are some allowances which are just enough for a person to stand. And then you have a counter in front and a counter at the back, and then just 60 centimeters in between. So what? That's not I mean, the space given to you is very big, and then suddenly you make a very cramped arrangement. So that's very bad. No? And then the formal informal kitchen should be separated by a door. I noticed that a lot of you do not use a door. Um, one one reason why we have a separate kitchen is that we want to hide the messy stuff, the messy part of the house. So if you don't have a door there, so people get to see what's inside. And sometimes you cook something, a surprise, etc. But um, no, if you're planning not to put a door but to put a curtain or something, then you should show that in your drawing, in your perspective. But again, there's um, no drawing, and also no indication in the write-up. So this is an L-shaped arrangement with an island, except that there are only three stools. Maybe if she puts another one near the door leading to the informal kitchen, and then remove that whatever rectangle is there, um, then that's good. No, the problem with this drawing, it looks very neat. The layout is very good, but then you don't label. So almost everyone, I think, I comment that you have to label the drawing. I just mentioned, for example, that rectangle there against the wall near the door to the informal kitchen. What is it? Okay, is that a bookcase? Is that a bench? Is that a cabinet? So you have to tell me. And then even the ref. So you have to always indicate where the ref is. Okay. Also, another thing that I want to point out in this drawing is the cupboard had to be shown as outlines or hidden lines. Okay. So it's not really a perfect, but it's a good example. Another one by Nathan James. This one makes use of the U. Okay, now there are four chairs, which is very good. Since he put the door here closer to the entrance, so you can put other things after the door, so you don't actually obstruct the passageway. So that's why he made use of a U shape. Um, I also wanted to commend Nathan for thinking about the ceiling design. No? Most of you just made use of a flat ceiling. In a kitchen, you can actually uh, um, become more creative. In drafting and presentation, so as I mentioned earlier, you have to label. Okay, label appliances, furniture, areas which are important. So it's a reading area, for example, in a living room. So you're planning to designate this as reading area or something like library, then you put that there. Okay. If you're going to put a lounge chair, you indicate what type of chair this is. Or is this circle? What is it? Is it a coffee table? Is it an ottoman? So you have to label it. Okay. And then in the case of the kitchen, do not use the word fridge. Okay. Frigidaire is a label, is a brand name. Okay, it's a refrigerator. So we don't put Xerox, we put photocopier, we don't put Colgate, we use toothpaste. Okay, so don't use brand names to label unless you're paid uh, to sponsor. You have a sponsor. So represent doors and cabinets doors properly. So how do you draw a door in elevation? Okay, so you have to recall what was taught to you in building tech 2, also in graphics. So you have to indicate where the hinge is located with that hidden line that forms like an arrow. And then in the floor plan, you have to use indicate the opening of the cabinet doors so that to make sure that they don't obstruct anything else. Okay. In the reflected ceiling plan, there are some of you who include the reflected ceiling plan with the floor plan. Okay, or you include the floor plan, you include the tables, the chairs. So in the floor plan, what we do is that we slice the building in half, and then we look at the what remained in the lower half of the house. But this time we still slice the house into half horizontally, but we're interested in what's on the upper half. Yet we're not going to look upwards, still going to look down. We replace the lower half with a mirror, and what we see there is what we draw. So it's like that for reflected settings. So what do you see? Where your lights are placed, whether you have a recessed ceiling or some designs. For example, you have some pendants, moldings, etc. Um, so anything, if the cabinet touches the ceiling, so that is shown and then shaded. But if it does not, so it's not shown at all because it's already excluded, no, in the view. So you don't put the chairs and the tables on a reflected ceiling plan. Then don't write section like section A, section B, if what you're using are elevation markers. So in your floor plan, you do not put the section line, but you put that markers there, no? Or arrow and then A, arrow here, B. But then in your drawing, you put section A, section B. So be consistent. You put elevation A or elevation B if you're not using the section line, okay? And then perspective should show the finishes used. Sometimes your floor plan and even the elevation shows the finishing, so tiles, even plants or wood. But when you show your perspective, it's all bare. Okay, so the perspective is supposed to show you a pictorial, a more a more realistic view of the space. So in fact, a lot of the clients would understand the perspective more than any drawing your elevation. So they find sometimes they find it very difficult to understand even the floor plan. But the perspective, everyone should be able to understand it, and everyone should be able to to know the information that you want to convey. So here I'm showing this so that you see the way the cabinet doors are treated. Um, so you see there the indication of where the hinges are located. So the cupboards are shown as a hidden line. The door, normally the swing is not hidden line, it's one thin line. But then um, Faith also made the correct way of drawing the reflected ceiling plan. Okay, so she has task lights at the sides and then two general lights at the center. This one is a presentation in terms of um, well, the overall impact. It's, when I saw this, I found it very attractive, especially that everything is manual. Last time I did say that I'm expecting everyone to not to use images and then to write everything manually. But there's a lot of you made text made of from computer. And also here in the perspective, at least he showed um, at the formal dining. He showed um, the materials, no, and even the curtains, and then the accessories like your flowers on the table, and then submissions will be to Canvas. I think that was part of the instruction, but there are three of you who submitted in Google Classroom. Okay, so I would understand if you submit in Google Classroom and Canvas, just in case the one in Canvas didn't work out. But for now, I'm considering it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm not going to post the assignments anymore in Google Classroom so that you'll be forced to submit it in Canvas. Okay. And then please give allowance for possible slow internet connectivity. Just because the deadline is midnight doesn't mean that you will submit on midnight. Okay. Why not submit much earlier? Why don't you do it earlier so that you'll have more free time? Okay, so well, just that. No, so every time I read about so sorry because internet is very slow. So sometimes it makes me think. So what time is he submitting? Um, it's not a good habit. Okay. This is a design consideration. I place here from architect Carmen Lastimoso because I made use of her slides. Although really in the end I made my own, but I started with her slides. So there are three spaces that we're going to discuss today, this afternoon. One is the living area. Okay. Um, so what are the activities in the living area? In the simplest way, it's for get-togethers of everyone in the house. Okay. Some families make sure that they get together after meals so that they get to spend time talking to each other. So that's the kind of family they have. And that's the kind of family that maybe we think should be the default. So we assume that this family in our exercise is the same. But in the brief, it is also stated that they want to receive visitors. To receive visitors, to entertain guests, so the living room has to be that. So which means it should be it should be not so bulky. At least the furniture should not be so bulky, so that you'll have different difficulty rearranging things. Okay, and then as much as possible, not so much um, built-in furniture in the middle of the room. So as much as possible, everything is right on the walls. Okay. Spaces needed. Basically, you need a group seating area for conversation. But then you cannot help it if even if you go as a group, there's always one or two, or maybe there's a need for a small group to break out or to separate themselves. For example, the kids, they while the adults are talking, the kids are here on the other side, or the guys and the husbands and the wives. Normally they separate. Um, or if you have friends, for example, or if one of the family members that visits the house is your friend, so you tend to separate because you're going to talk about something else like schoolwork. So there should also be a small group, small space for smaller discussions. Okay, and then if the space is big enough, you can have other special areas for specific activities. Like if you play the piano and there's a piano, so or board games, so that's another area. So the priority is like that. No, first is the main conversation area, then the breakout um, area, and then the specific activities if the space allows. So furniture needed, of course, sofa set. You have so many types of sofas. I think you have that in your research already. The normal sofa, which can be two-seater, which is a love seat also, a three-seater. It's rarely a four-seater. Or you can have sectionals. No? Some parts with which are like letter L, or the chair is always the one-seater. The ottoman is like a bench for one person. So then the coffee table, which comes in many different sizes or shapes. And then there's always the side table, like we see here in the picture, you know, where you put the lampshade or some other things. Supplemental furniture, you can have some accent tables and chairs, or a chaise lounge. This is a very big um, chair with very high back and then also wide arms. A day seat is like a bench with arms but no backrest, which you can use also to lie down. And then other furnishing, depending on the activity. For example, here I showed an accent chair made of wood, where you can also uh, lie down. The dining area is simply for daily meals and for specific for some special occasion like parties. Um, Space needed, eating area, then preparation area, but this is optional. For example, um, if you have food that you don't want to serve immediately to the table, so you can keep it there. Or if you have a buffet style, or what they call the Dutch lunch, you know, where you just get the food from a buffet and then bring it to the table, bring your plate to the table. And then some storage area, which is also optional. So what are these storage area? Because in a dining room, you need the table and chairs. But aside from that, there are two other um, furniture which are normally found in a dining table. The buffet is like what you see here. Um, it's a it's a cabinet. You only need the surface, and then you call that a buffet. This way, I have a cat. Okay, so um, so that's where you put your your things, no? Your food. if you want to serve, if you don't want to serve it in the main table. Um, the buffet is also used for preparation. Like you will, before putting the food to the table, you need to arrange it first. Okay. Um, that's why actually you need a lot of space on the buffet, or a free space. The one here is decorated with so many things, no, that it's hardly functional. Um, Sometimes we also have what we call a china cabinet, especially for the old-fashioned um, dining rooms. That's where you display your collection of chinaware or some important plates. I don't think if the client is a collector. But when I mentioned earlier that there should also be a space for storage, um, I'm referring also to the the utensils and um, the chinaware, no, the plates that are going to be used for parties or even for daily use. No? So sometimes they're placed inside in the formal dining room, especially if they are a bit expensive. So your buffet can have drawers for all of this. Okay, this buffet here has drawers, and probably uh, they can store some coffee pots or some other things which are for tea, which might be expensive. But otherwise, you can have a more functional buffet. So when designing living room and dining room, especially if it's an open plan, like what's going to happen in your exercise, it's important to think about the zoning. So where does the dining room start? Where does the living room end? Like that. And then traffic. So from the entrance to the bedroom, or from the bedroom, from the entrance, from the kitchen to the living room and the dining room. So you have to trace that out so that to make sure that you don't end up going around just to get to go somewhere. Okay. And then the furnishing, of course, you have to think through the furniture. Um, Lighting, of course, is important. Um, Normally, in a dining room and living room, there's a lot of accent lighting, like lampshades, um, also sconces or wall lights. Surface treatment, and then of course accessories. So we saw a lot of accessories earlier. The plants, for example, magazine racks, this vase, or this bowl on the table. So these are accessories. So now let's talk about this very interesting space, which I think, we hardly consider in a Filipino house. Okay, there are very few that notice in houses that I visit in the Philippines, unless they are the more expensive houses. The foyer or the entrance hall. So what happens in a foyer or entrance hall? I already mentioned this when we talk about the powder room, which I said it should be near the entrance hall, because this is a preparation area for before leaving, and a holding area for guests that are arriving that arrive. Um, so if you have a guest, you can make them wait there while you call on the master of the house or whoever is called. But then if you're leaving, that's why as you can see in the picture, there's always a mirror. So you want to check yourself first before you go out, or when you arrive, you want to see how you look like, no? Before anyone else would ask you, mahangin ba sa labas? So you check yourself first. Um, so the space needed simply is a waiting area and a sitting area, but this is optional. So here in the picture, I showed you a bench, so they can sit there while waiting. So probably this is a very small space, no? But at least they managed to put a rope hook or for the jackets, and then this bench can have a, or it does not have a storage. So at least you can sit down, no? The guest can sit down while waiting. Design consideration, the foyer must allow for non-intrusion into the living space. So as much as possible, the living space can be screened a little, okay, so that there's still privacy. Um, the design of the floor plan, um, the entrance does not really go directly to the dining room, the living room. It goes to the side, but still since it's very small, so people can still look into the living room. And then it must be served by a powder room as much as possible. And there should be a storage for coats, shoes, and umbrellas. But it does not have to be a closet. It can be like what I showed earlier in the picture, hooks for the coats and the hats, and then for shoes, possibly the under of that bench can be for shoes, and then the umbrella. Sometimes you have, it's an accessory, no? An umbrella holder. In Japan, there's always a foyer, and then there's always a place to put all your shoes because they have to change the shoes to sandals when they enter the house. And even the guests have to do that, no? They leave their shoes on the foyer, and then they're given a pair of sandals for guests before they enter the house, or they enter with their socks. And that's true even in offices. And then a special furniture for foyer is what we call the console, and then it's normally paired with a mirror. The console is a table which you just put at against the wall. Sometimes it's even a very small one, and sometimes it's circular or half a semicircular. Um, and then the main purpose really is just to store anything that you will need when you go out every day, like your keys or some other things. No? And also, it's paired with a mirror so that you can also prepare yourself again, and then whatever you need to prepare yourself can be on the console. And sometimes the console is where people put the letters that arrive. Okay, so that whoever, for example, in the family, the you get the letter from the mailbox, and then if you're the husband and then you're the one who collected all the letters, you just keep your letter and place everything else there, so that when they arrive, they check if there's a letter for them. So that's the place for the console. Okay. Um, Okay, I think that's it. So let's talk about your homework, which I already assigned to you last Monday. The drawing requirements are floor plans, sectional elevations, again, a reflected ceiling plan, a list of furnishing and furniture used, and the interior perspective of the living and dining room rendered in mixed media. So this was prepared by architect Marcia Presas. Um, so this time, uh, in your in your perspective, try to show the materials used. Okay, even if you don't show it in the floor plan and elevation, um, you can just, but you have to label somehow. But then the perspective had to show it like it's a photograph. Of course, it's mixed media, so what you're using. Um, Manually drafted in A3 paper and photo uploaded on the Canvas portal. Okay, so A3, you can use a tracing paper, but it has to be size of an A3. Because I expect that this will be collected later on. Okay, you'll have to submit all these drawings later, because you're going to compile them and make use of it as a portfolio, part of your portfolio. So let's look at the plan. We have here a living area and then the entrance. Okay, that should be a foyer there. You already put consider the powder room. Um, the foyer can take up the whole thing uh, until the stairs, but then you'll have to treat the stairs. No, I mean, how do you maintain the privacy of the spaces going to the sleeping areas? And then you have to think through where to put the dining area and then the living area. So it's a bit tricky with this layout. Okay, and then um, normally there's a the TV, since there is no family room here, so we expect that the family will also be using the living room as a family room. Okay, so you have to consider that. Therefore, there has to be an entertainment center. There has to be a TV, and you have to take note of the allowance that you need, the distance of the TV to the viewer, and then depending on that distance is also the size of your television. Okay, so do not put a very very small television which is very very far from the viewer. Okay, it's you can easily look that up in the internet. There's a lot of information that you can get. Okay, very good. I think this is the last slide. Oh, okay. So right now, what we're doing is that we're discussing the basics of living, dining, and foyer. Next meeting, um, if I finish the checking everything, um, so we'll have commentaries also on your exercise, and then we'll start discussing about ramps and stairs and roofs. So we're not designing a space anymore. So we're designing some architectural features. Then we'll have an exercise on that, but that's Monday. Um, I will not be giving any assignments, so please focus on your uh, submission of the living room. So this is like the last space that you're going to design for exercises. After this, after the ramps, stairs, and roofs, um, we will start with your first plate. Okay, and then this one is like the grade is like 70%, but it's part of the after midterms. No, so all of these exercises are meant to hopefully make your plate really presentable. Okay, let me stop sharing. So there are a few questions. Do we have to render all plans and sections or just the perspective? Only the perspective, okay? The plans and sections, you show them as architectural drawing, technical drawing. You have to retain the placement of the windows. The windows, just like the kitchen, you can manipulate the size of the windows and the doors as long as they remain on that same wall. If there's a window assigned there, you can manipulate it. Okay. In our plan, I think there's a one door, one wall. You have a sliding door, I think, leading out to the patio, and then the other side you have windows. Um, that's also another thing. I in the kitchen, there are a few of you who actually designed the windows, and most of the time it seems like forgotten. Um, how do you show the plans in blow up from knowing that the overall plan is an open plan? If the drawing does not fit A3, because I think the scale is 1:50, if the drawing does not fit, you'll have to cut it uh, and then separate the drawings in the papers. But I think it will fit. I'll check later also if it does not. But that's how you do it. You have to cut the floor plan. Maybe where it is supposed to be separated, so you cut it. Can we combine the section elevations for the living and dining room since they would be in the same area? Yes. Yes. So mm, I'm thinking of so not everything. The foyer, for example, I think it's difficult to do that, to combine it. But I leave it to your judgment as long as it comes out presentable. But yes, I will allow combining. Do we also do sections for the foyer? Of course. You have at least 3 walls in the foyer. Okay. Do we include the plan for the foyer with the living room and dining room or separate, sir? As I mentioned earlier, if they all fit in one paper in A3 at scale 1:50, it's better to design them as one space. Okay. In fact, I really prefer it that way so that we see whether the allowances, the spaces around the furniture is wide enough for people to go around. Is it necessary to make 4 elevations? I'm afraid so, yes. But then since you'll be combining, so some elevations will be counted as combined. Um, you know what I mean. For example, in living and dining room, so 2 elevations might be combined. Okay. Um, oh, I ran out of questions. Very good. Um, I'm sure there are many more questions, and I think you already started making the drawings. But I hope. Wait, this is an interesting question. Can I move the position of the stairs? Let me look at the plan. Um, the stairs. Yes, I will allow it. Okay, you can move the position of the stair and you can design the stair. You can make it wide, like taking the whole space, or you can make it just shorter. Um, but yes, as long as the stair is on that side. Okay, so it's part of your design. I'm receiving a lot of messages somewhere else. So, okay, so we have to, there's another question. Are we allowed to excavate the floor for the living area, like for it to be sunken, or is it not recommended? Hmm, sunken floor, sunken living room. Well, I will allow it. Okay, I will allow it. Just as we were manipulated the walls with the windows and doors, we can manipulate also uh, the floor. So we can raise it or sink it, depends on the design. Mm, just make sure that you have enough space around because a sunken living room is very tricky. Okay. Um, yes. What else? So please do your best for the living room. I think generally you've improved, um, but the thing there is the things that I mentioned when I evaluate all your work. Um, so please take note of them because there are things that I really notice that everyone falls into, um, and it's not a good habit. Okay. Sir, what if the elevation doesn't have much in it? Should we include that elevation? What would be an elevation that doesn't have much in it? Um, because you can show the furniture, but if it's not against the wall and there are no built-in, and then you don't even have paintings or anything, or no accessories, well, anyway, you still have to show it because the elevation is required. Okay, and then for me to know that there's nothing there, um, which I might question, why isn't there anything here? So, okay, so we'll end. All other questions, please ask me through email. I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. Okay, so I'll stop the recording now. Yes,